No, that's.
Shabbat shalom. Good Yom Tov. Good to see you too. We are set to go. Shabbat shalom. It's glad to have you here again. Hello.
Sunday morning.
What page? Shabbat shalom. Page 65, please rise.
In honor of, in memory of.
We invite Carol Feinerman's presence into the sanctuary today, but I know she's sitting right over there.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lasech v'ivina lavkin ben yom uvin laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani b'tzalmo. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani ben chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokiach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam rokah haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa li kol tzorki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechin mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael b'gevurah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael b'tifarah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanotein laya'ef koach.
We may be seated.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ha'ma'avir sheina me'inai truma me'afapai v'yiratzon b'fanecha. Utanenu hayom uv'chol yom lechein v'lechesed v'rachamim be'einecha uve'nei kol re'enim v'tigmelenu chasadim tovim. Baruch atah Adonai gomel chasadim tovim le'amo Yisrael. Yiratzon b'fanecha Adonai Elohai v'le'avotai she'tatzilenu hayom uv'chol yom me'zefanim. Ribon kol ha'odamim tzikutinah. אבל אנחנו כבדים תכף נעבר המחר. Ashrenu matov chelkenu manayim gorelenu umayafa yerushatenu. Ashrenu she'anachnu mashkimim umarivim erev vavoker v'omrim pamayim b'chol yom. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Kadesh et shimcha makdishei shemecha, v'kadesh et shimcha v'olamecha, u'v'sha'atecha tagrim v'tagbia kardenu, Baruch ata Adonai, v'kadesh et shimcha v'arabim. Let's continue on page 81. Mizmor shir Chanukat habayit leDavid. Zamu Adonai chasdav v'hodu lezeker kodsho ki regabapo. It's so noble. Hafachta misbeli lemacholi patachta saki v'taz reni simcha leman yizamecha chavod v'lo yidam Adonai Elohai leolam odeka. Order status, page 82. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah v'yalama divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayichon v'yomechon v'chayei v'chol beit Yisrael ba'agalat v'zman kari v'imru amen Yehei shmei rabbah v'rach leolam u'leomei olmaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yidaleh v'yitalal shmei kudesha v'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechamata da'amiron b'yolama v'yimru amen Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen Oseh shalom b'romav Hu Yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'Yimru Amen. Continue on page 83. Please rise. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam Baruch Hu Baruch Oseh v'reshit Baruch Omer v'yoseh Baruch Ozer Kayem Baruch Merachem al haaretz, Baruch Merachem al habrio, Baruch Mishalem Sachar Tov Lireah, Baruch Hala'ad, V'kayam lanetzach, Baruch Podeh Umatzil, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ho'el v'rachem. Yahachid ha'olamim melech b'shbachim foradei shmo hagadol Baruch ata Adonai melech mehulal batishbachot. You may be seated, page 84. Hodu l'Adonai kir vishmo hodiu ba'amim alilotav shiru lo zamru lo yisbach. Shiru l'Adonai kol haaretz v'asru miyom neshuato sapru v'aliyim et kavodo b'chol hamim niflotav ki gadol Adonai u'mehulal me'od v'norah hu al kol Elohim ki kol Elohei amim alilim Adonai shmai masah Hod v'hadam fanav oz v'hedvo bimkomo hu v'l'Adonai mishpachot amim hu v'l'Adonai kavod v'oz. Oz. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu v'yishtachvu la'adom raglav kadoshu. Romamu Adonai Eloheinu v'yishtachvu lahar kodsho ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu. Vehu rachum mechaper avon v'lo yashvit v'hir bala shiva pavlo yirko chamato. Adonai, Hoshiyamka, Selah, Adonai, Tzvot Yimara Miskav, Elohai Yaakov, Selah, Adonai, Tzvot Asher Adam Bateach Bach, Adonai, Hoshia Melech Yanenu, V'yom Kareinu, Hoshia et Amecha, Uvorech et Nachlatecha, Urim V'nasim Ad Haolam, Hoshia et Amecha, Uvorech et Nachlatecha, Urim V'nasim Ad Haolam, Nafshenu Iktal Adonai, Ezrinu Maginenu Hu, Kivasenu Kivashim Kach. Ashriyam Shukachalo Ashriyam, Shadonai Eloha Va'ani B'chastecha V'tachti Ageli Bibishuatecha, Ashir Adonai Ki Yamal Alai.
Service continues on page 91.
Hallelujah, hallelujah, Shem Adonai, hallelujah, Avdei Adonai, Shomdi B'Beit Adonai B'Chatzrot Beit Eloheinu. Sichon Melech Melech HaBashan, Melech Canaan. That's nice. Beit Yisrael Baruch Hu et Adonai, Beit Aharon Baruch Hu et Adonai, Beit HaLevi Baruch Hu et Adonai, Yirei Adonai Baruch Hu et Adonai, Baruch Adonai Mitzion Shechem Yerushalayim. Hallelujah. We rise as we continue on page 92. Hodu l'Adonai ki tov ki li'olam chazdo. Hodu l'Elohei Elohim ki li'olam chazdo. Hodu l'Adonai Adonim ki li'olam chazdo. Yosei niflot gedolot levado ki li'olam chazdo. Le'osei hashemayim bituna. Shebeshiflenu zacharlanu kilio lam kazdo vayifrekenu mitzarenu kilio lam kazdo note lechem lechol basar kilio lam kazdo odule el hashamayim kilio lam kazdo.
You may be seated. Service continues on 93.
Rananu tzadikim barovnai leisharim navati la. Nafshenu hiktal Adonai Ezreinu Maginenu Hu Kivo Yismach Libenu Kivashem Kodsho Vataknu Yehi Chaschar Adonai Aleinu Kasher Yichanu La Mizmor Shir Yom HaShabbat Tov Lodot Ladonai L'Zamel Shimchel Yom Hagit Baboker Chasdecha Yismach Tanya B'Falach Masi Aranim. Sari katamar yifrak eres bavanon yizke shetulim bevet Adonai b'chatzrot Eloheinu yafrichu od yunuvim b'seva d'shenim rananim iyu l'agid ki asher Adonai tzuriv lo avlatabo Adonai malach yut lavei. Nasu narod Adonai nasu narod kolam yisuf. Mikolot mayim rabim adirim bishperei amadir bamarom Adonai Edot techanem numa od levet chanav kodesh Adonai le orech yamim. Yehi chavod Adonai leolam yismach Adonai b'masav yishem Adonai b'rach mi'atav Adonai b'mizrach shemesh ad mevo'ohu. Yes, of course, I would talk about it when you are you, Adonai malach. V'urachim chaper von v'lo yashrit, dir bat lahashiba po v'lo yirkol chamato. Adonai Oshia, HaMelech Yanenu, V'yom Kareinu.
Page 96.
Ashri Oshvi V'techa, Od Yalucha Selah, Ashri Oshkakala, Ashri. That's it, Topher. Malchut, Malchut, Kol, Memshat, Ador. Tzaddik, Adonai B'chol Racham V'chasdi B'chol Ma'asav. Tilat, Adonai Yedaber Pi Vivarech Kol Basar Shem Kodsho Leolam Va'ed Va'anachnu Nevarech Yah Me'ata V'yad Olam. Hallelujah, 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 Nafshi Et Adonai. Shemayim Va'aretz Et Hayam V'Asher Bam. Adonai Matiras Urim Adonai Pokeach Ivrim Adonai Zokef Kefufim Adonai Ohev Tzadikim. Adonai Shomer Et Geirim Yatam V'Amanav V'Yaded V'Derech Hashem Yaved Yimloch Adonai Li'olam Elohai Tzil Nador V'Ador. Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Ki Tov Zamra Eloheinu Ki Na'im Navati La Bonei Yerushalayim. Magid v'rav le'Yaakov chukav u'mishpatav li'Yisrael lo asach en l'kol goy mishpatim b'yada'um. Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Hallelujah et Adonai min hashamayim. Hallelujah b'marim. Erin b'chol gavot et pri b'chol arazim v'chayam b'chol b'imam v'mitzvot kanav. Bachomim b'gam b'tulot. Vayarem keren lamoti l'tila l'chol chasidav livnei Yisrael am karovo. Hallelujah, Hallelujah. Shir l'Adonai shir chadash tilat opichal chasidim. Le'asor machehem bezikim benich b'dehem b'chavlei varzel la'asot b'hem mishpat katuv hadar u'lechol chasidav. Hallelujah, Hallelujah, Hallelujah el b'kodsho. Hallelujah b'kei ha'uzo. Kol hanshamat hallelujah, Hallelujah, ha. Kol hanshamat hallelujah, Hallelujah. Baruch Adonai Li'olam Amen V'Amen. Baruch Adonai Elohim Elohei Yisrael Osei Niflot Levado. Uvaruch Shem Kvodo Li'olam V'Malei Kvodo Et Kol Haaretz. Amen V'Amen.
Rise to the top of 101.
Va'avarch David et Adonai Le'nei Kol HaKahal Va'yomer David. Baruch Atah Adonai Elohei Yisrael Avinu. Atahu Adonai Levad. Ata Asita et Hashamayim Shmir Shemayim V'Tzva'am. Atahu Adonai Ho Elohim Asher Bacharta Be'Avram V'Hotzeto Mirukazdim V'Samta Shemo Avraham Umatzata et Levavo Neman Lefanecha V'Charoti Mohabrit L'Tete Teretz Akademi Achiti Amari Abrizi Ayasi Gergashi L'Tate Zar O. V'ayam bakata lifneim ve'avru b'toch hayam v'yabasha ve'rod ve'hem mishlach b'imtzolot kamo even b'mayim mazim v'yosha Adonai bayom hahu et Yisrael miyad Mitzrayim v'yar Yisrael et Mitzrayim meit al sfat hayam v'yar Yisrael et hayad hagadola asher asa Adonai b'Mitzrayim Vayiru ha'am et Adonai, vayaminu b'Adonai u'Moshe avdo. Az Yashir, Moshe v'nei Yisrael et Ashir azot Adonai v'yim lemor, Ashir el Adonai ki ga'ogam. Adonai Shem. Adonai imloch leolam ba'ed. Ki l'Adonai hamelucha u'Moshe ba'goyim. V'alu Moshim b'Har Tzion lishpot et harisav. V'hayta l'Adonai hamelucha. V'hayat Adonai l'melech al kol ha'aretz. V'yom hahu Adonai echad. U'shmo
We are
echad.
seated as we continue on 104.
Nishmat kol chai, tevarech et shimcha Adonai Eloheinu, v'ra kol basar teva'er, v'ramim zichcha malkeinu tamid. Okay, never reach a bit of a new rock neshama. The ape new. Mi yitmelach mi yishvelach mi yorachlach ha'el agadol hagibor v'hanara elayon konei shemayim va'aretz ya'lelecha shabechacha nefarecha nevarechet shem kodshecha ka'amur leDavid barchi nafshi et Adonai v'chol kravai et shem kadsho.
Service continues middle of 105. Don't throw candy yet. There's still some more to come. Mark takes over in the middle of the page.
Ha'el b'tatzumot uzecha, Hagadol b'chvod shemecha, Hagibor lanetzach, v'hanora b'norotecha, HaMelech HaYoshev al kisei ram v'nisa, Shochen ad marom v'kadosh shemo. Lefi yesharim tit halal uv'divrei tzadikim tit parach u'ilashon chasidim tit ramam uv'kerev kedoshim tit kadash uv'makalot rivavot amcha bet Yisrael. L'odat le'alel le'shabeach le'faer L'ramem lader levarech le'alel lekales al kol divrei shirot v'tishbechot David ben Yishai avdecha meshichecha.
Please rise. 106.
Yishtabach shimcha la'ad malkeinu. Brachot vehodot me'ata v'yad olam baruch ata Adonai el melech gadol batishbachot el hahodot adon haniflaot havocher b'shirei zimra melech elchei haolamim. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemeh rabah. Ve'alma divra kiruteh ve'amlich malchuteh. B'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael. Ba'agalah u'v'zaman kariv. V'imru amen. Yehei shemeh rabah mevarach le'alam ula'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal shmeh dekudsha barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or v'orei choshech yotzer or v'orei choshech Yotzer or v'orei choshech, oseh shalom u'vorei et hakol. Hakol yoducha. Ein kerkecha Adonai Eloheinu ba'olam hazeh, ve'ein zulatcha malkeinu l'chayei ha'olam haba, efes biltcha golenu limot hamashiach, ve'ein dome lecha moshienu, l'tchiyat hametim. El Adon al kol hamasim, baruch u'mevorach, b'fi kol neshama, God love v'tuva malei olam da'at u'tvuna sovavimoto amit ga'e al chayot hakodesh v'nedar b'chavod al hamerkava zechut u'mishor lifnei chiso chesed v'rachamim lifnei chavodo Tovim me'orot shebara Eloheinu yitzaram b'da'at b'vina uv'haskel koach u'gvura natan bahem lihyot moshlim b'karev tevel meleim ziv u'mafikim nogah nahezivam b'chol ha'olam Smechim b'tzeitam v'sasim b'vo'am osim be'em haratzon konam be'er v'chavod notnim lishmot zohol averina l'zecher malchuto Kara l'Hashem v'yizrach ora'av v'hitkin Surat Halavana Shevach notnim lo Kol tzeva maharam Tiferet gedulas Rahafim ve'ofanim ve'chayot HaKodesh Kulam ahuvim, kulam berurim, kulam giborim, v'kulam osim be'ema uv'yir haratzon konam, v'kulam potchim et pihem b'kedusha uv'tohara, b'shira uv'zimra, u'mevarachim, u'mshabchim, u'mefa'arim, u'ma'aritzim, u'makdishim, u'mamlichim, et shem ha'el, ha'melech ha'gadol, וכולם קבלים עליהם או מלכות שמיים זה מזה ונותנים רשות זה לזה להקדיש ליוצרם בנחת רוח בשפה ברורה ובנעימה קדושה Kulam kecharonim v'omrim beyirah. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai Tzevaot. Melech kol haaretz kevodo. V'ha'ofanim v'chayot hakodesh bera'ash gadol mitnaseim lematzrafim. Le'umatam mishabchim ve'omrim Baruch kavod Adonai mimkomo levok mitenu. Orcha hadash al Tzion ta'ir v'nizkechu lahanu mehera le'oro Baruch ata Adonai yotzer hame'oro.
Service continues on page 111. We're preparing for the Shema on the next page.
V'kerav tanu l'shimcha hagadol sela be'emet l'odot lecha u'liyachedcha be'ahava Baruch ata Adonai abocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Continue silently to the middle of 113.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. L'dor vador kayam u'shmo kayam v'chiso nachon u'malchuto ve'emunato la'ad kayamet. Emet chatahu Adonai Eloheinu v'Eloi avotenu malkeinu melech avotenu go aleinu go el avotenu yotzreinu tu yishuatenu Odenu umatzilenu me'olam shemecha en Elohim zulatecha Ezrat avotenu atahu me'olam.
As we are working our way down page 114 silently, we'll be singing full-throatedly the Micha Mocha for this, the 8th day of Pesach. We'll be standing for the final 3 lines of the page, and then we'll be heading directly into our silent Amidah, which you can either follow the English directions at the bottom of the page or trust me that it begins at the top of 123b for the festival, inclusions for Pesach and for Shabbat.
Tehilot leil elyon baruch hu u'mevorach Moshe uvnei Yisrael lechanu shira b'simcha rabah v'yamru kulam mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai mi chamocha nedar b'kodesh nohora tehilot
Sefele Shira Chadasha Shibechu Geulim L'Shimcha Sefat Hayam Yachad Kulam Hodu Vehim Lichu Ve'amru Adonai Yimloch Leolam Va'ed Sur Yisrael Kuma Be'ezrat Yisrael Ufedei Chinumecha Yehuda Ve'Yisrael Go Aleinu Adonai Tzvot Shemo Kedosh Yisrael Baruch Atah Adonai.
Those still davening, please continue as the rest of us turn back for the repetition. We're standing on 123b.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomer Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol v'Zocher Chasdei Avot Mevi Goel Livnei V'neihem L'ma'an Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer Foked Umoshiach Umagen Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Abraham Ufoked Sarah ata gibor leolam Adonai mechaye metim ata rav lehoshia morid hatal. Mechal kelchayim bechesed, mechaye metim berachamim rabim. Mechal kelchayim bechesed, mechaye metim berachamim rabim. Somech noflim v'rofei cholim umatir asurim. Umekayem emunato lishenei afar. Michamocha ba'al gevurot umido melech. Melech meimit umechaye umatzmiach Yeshua. V'ne'eman ata lachayot metim baruch ata Adonai mechaye hametim.
124.
Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam keshem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marom kakatuv al yad nevi'echa v'kara zeh el zeh ve'amar Kadosh 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 Adonai Tzavaot Melech kol haaretz kevodo. Az bekol ra'ash gadol, adir v'chazak mashmi'im kol, mitnaseim l'umat serafim l'umatam, baruch yomeru, baruch kevod Adonai mimkomo. Mimkom chamalkeinu tofia, Mimkom chamalkeinu tofia, V'tim loch aleinu, V'tim loch aleinu, Ki mechakim anachnu lach. Matai timloch betzion, Matai timloch betzion, Bekaro beyameinu leolam vahet tishkon. Tit gadal v'tit kadash betoch Yerushalayim ircha. Ledor vador, dor vador, ulenetzach netzachim, ve'yeneinu tir'ena malchutecha. Kadavar hamur b'shirei uzecha, ayidei David Mashiach tzidkecha, yimloch Adonai leolam, Elohai Tzion, ledor vador. Hallelujah. Ledor vador nagi godlecha, lenetzach netzachim, kedushatcha nakdish, v'shivchacha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush leolam vahed, ki el melech gadol v'kadosh ata baruch ata Adonai ha'el hakadosh. Ata v'chartanu mikol hamim ahavta otanu v'ratzita banu v'romamtanu mikol halashanot v'kidashtanu b'mitzvotecha v'keravtanu malkeinu la'avoratecha v'shimcha hagadol v'hakadosh alenu karata v'titen lanu Adonai Eloheinu b'ava Shabbatot limnocha u'moadim l'simcha chagim u'zmanim v'sasot Et Yom HaShabbat hazeh, ve'et Yom Chag HaMatzot hazeh, Zaman Cherutenu Biava Mikra Kodesh Zecher Litziat Mitzrayim Eloheinu Beloi Avotenu Ya'alev Yavov Yagia V'yera'eh v'yeratzeh v'yishama v'yifaked v'yizacher zikronenu fiktonenu v'zikron avotenu v'zikron Mashiach ben David Abdecha v'zikron Yerushalayim ir Kodshecha v'zikron kol amcha beit Yisrael lefanecha liflei tal letova l'cheinu l'chesed u'lerachamim l'chayim u'l'shalom v'yom chag hamatzot hazeh Zochreinu Adonai Eloheinu bo l'tova ufokdenu bo livracha boshinu bo l'chayim uvidvar Yeshua v'rachamim chuspafonenu v'rachim aleinu boshienu ki elecha einenu ki el melachanu v'rachum ata v'hasiyeh Adonai Eloheinu et birkat moadecha l'chaim u'l'shalom l'simcha u'l'sason kasher ratzita ve'amarta l'varachenu Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu ritzei v'menuchatenu Kachenu b'mitzvotecha v'ten chelkeinu v'toratecha Sabe'enu mituvecha v'samecheinu b'shuatecha v'taher libeinu li'ovdecha be'emet v'antilenu Adonai Eloheinu b'avav ratzon v'simcha v'sason Shabbat u'moadei kodshecha v'yismechu v'cha Yisrael v'kadshei shemecha baruch ata Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat v'Yisrael v'hazemani Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu b'amcha Yisrael v'tfilatam v'hashevet havodah l'dvir beitecha v'tfilatam b'avatcha b'ratzon v'tehila ratzon tamid avodat Yisrael hamecha v'tekazena einenu v'shuvcha l'tzion b'rachamim baruch ata Adonai Hamachazir Shkinato Letzion Odiman Nachnu Atahu Adonai Eloheinu Beloi Avotenu Le'olam Va'ed Tzur Chayenu Magen Yishenu Atahu L'dor V'dor Nodeh L'cha N'saper Tehilatecha Al Chayenu Hamasurim B'yadecha V'al Nishmotenu Habugrot Lach V'al Nisecha Sheb'chol Yom Imanu Ve'al niflaotecha v'tovatecha sheb'chol eit erev avoker v'tzoharayim hatov ki lo chalu rachamecha v'amrachim ki lo tamu chasadecha me'olam kivinu lach v'yakulam yitbarach v'yitromam shimcha makenu tamid le'olam va'ed v'chol hachayim yoducha selah v'hal shimcha be'emet ha'el Baruch ata Adonai Atov Shimcha Ulechana Elohodo Baracha Meshulashet Batorah HaKtuva Al Yedei Moshe Avdecha Ha'amura Mipi Aaron Vanav Kohanim HaKadoshecha Ka'amur Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmer Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'chunecha Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom Sim shalom ba'olam tova uvracha chen v'chesed rachamim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael amecha Baruchenu avinu kulanu ke'echad be'or panecha ki be'or panecha natata lanu Adonai Eloheinu Torah chayim v'avat chesed u'tzedaka uvracha v'rachamim v'chayim v'shalom v'tov be'einecha
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivav Lehoshivi im nidivei amor Moshivi akeret abayit Em abanim smecha Hallelujah B'tzeit Yisrael Mitzrayim Beit Yaakov Me'am Loes Hayata Yehuda Lekodsho Yisrael Mamshilotav Hayam Ra'ava Hayanos Hayarden Yisov Le'achor Heharim O Kivnetza Malecha Hayam Itanu Hayarden Tisov Le'achor Heharim Tirkidu Che'elim Yevao Ifnei Milifnei Adon Fuli Aret Milifnei Eloi Yaakov Ahochi Hatzor Agam Mayim Chalami Lemaino Mayim
134.
Adonai Zecharani Yevarech et Beit Yisrael Yevarech et Beit Aharon Yevarech Yirei Adonai Haktanim im Hagdolim Yosef Adonai Alechem ve'al bnechem Baruchim atem l'Adonai Oseh shamayim shamayim l'Adonai Ve'haaretz Lo hametim hallelujah Ve'lo kol yodedu ma va'anachnu nevarech yad me'ata ve'ad olam Alleluia Ma'ashiv l'Adonai Nidarai l'Adonai Ashalem, negdan alechol amo, bechatzrot Beit Adonai, betochech Yerushalayim, Hallelujah.
136.
Hallelujah, et Adonai, kol goyim shabchu, kol haomim, ki gavar aleinu, chanu chasto ve'emet. Hallelujah, hodu l'Adonai, ki tov, ki le'olam, ki le'olam. Israel ki leolam chasto yomruna ve'na haron ki leolam chasto yomruna yir'e Adonai ki leolam chasto minamet sakarati Kuli sharet tzedek avova modeya Kuli sharet tzedek avova modeya Zeh Hashal Adonai Tzadikim Yavoah Zeh Hashal Adonai Tzadikim Yavoah
137.
Otecha ki anitani batehili Yeshua. Otecha ki anitani batehili Yeshua. Emasu adoni hayetal rosh pina. Emasu adoni hayetal rosh pina. Me'et Adonai hayetazot iniflat b'yeineinu. Me'et Adonai hayetazot iniflat b'yeineinu. Masa Adonai nagila v'nismechalo. Zeh hayom masa Adonai Anadonai Hoshiana Anadonai Hoshiana Anadonai Hatzlichana Adonai Hatzlichana Odu ladonai kitov kili olam chasto. Odu ladonai kitov kili olam chasto. Yalu chanel. Ki lechatov lodod l'shinchana el zamer ki mi'olam mi'ad olam ata'el baruch ato Adonai melech me'ula batishpachot.
We may be seated. Kaddish Shalom. 138.
Yikara v'yikara shemeh rabba v'almadi v'akurte v'yamlik machute b'chayechonu v'yamechonu v'chayedecho bet Yisrael b'agala v'zman karev imru amen Yehesh shmeh rabba mevarach le'alam le'almei almaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpar v'yitrama v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yithalal shmei d'kudsha b'richu le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechamata damiran be'alma v'imru amen tikabatz loton avoton d'chol Yisrael kodam avohon d'vishmaya v'imru amen
Yehesh lama Rabbi Michmaya v'chayim alenu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mamav hu ya'aseh shalom alenu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen.
We turn back to page 72 for the Psalm for Shabbat. Sometimes I'll do it, sometimes. Page 72. Hayom Yom Shabbat.
My God. Oh, Yunuvim b'seva d'shenim v'ra'ananim yiyu le'agid ki asher Adonai tzuri v'lo avlata bo.
Shakal? Oh, okay.
My nose.
Thanks for staying safe. Page 82, Mourner's Kaddish. For those who are reciting today, please rise and recite along with me, including those who are streaming the service and reciting Kaddish on this day. I'm just going to wait one moment. There we go. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. V'yamha divra pirute v'yamlich malchute. V'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah v'varach le'olam u'lamei amaya. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei d'kudesha richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. We may be seated. May their memories continue to bring blessings to the world, as I know they do, and as will continue their memories at Yisker. We're on page 139 for the Torah service. We are triply blessed, actually more today. We are here to celebrate each other in community with Torah and Shabbat. We're privileged to be together in community to celebrate Pesach, the season of our liberation. And we are very honored and happy to be coming together to honor the service to our community and the very person and character of one Ron Sussman. With our triple blessings, we continue with the Torah service on page 139.
Ein kamoka Elohim Adonai v'ein kema'asecha.
Malchutecha, malchut, kol u'memshaltecha $140.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema.
Eloheinu, Gadol Adonai, Kadosh Shemo.
הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב. לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב. לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. We may be seated. As we turn in Deuteronomy, we're going to page 1074, going all the way down to 1074. In lieu of Torah, I'll just say this in preparation for your own reading and thinking, which is here on the 8th day of Pesach, as we've been mulling over, discussing, savoring, and living the season of our liberation and thinking of the meaning of liberation. The rabbis have chosen for us a special time to read a selection from Torah about the fact that liberation today, slavery, is tied to money. It is tied to our economic condition. And so the Torah extends the notion of liberation, certainly from political and cultural to economic, to those have enough, to people have enough to eat, to people enslaved through debt. The themes of the Torah, of course, as you know, are as true today as they were in the time that it was delivered originally. Are those who do not inherit property and are property lists, as discussed in the Torah? Do they have enough to keep them sustained? Do those who serve the community make enough to be sustained? And are those who are in debt forever trying to get out of it? For such a life is not a life of dignity. Zachary Bernstein is our first Torah reader, and Andy Schiff is our first. ויעזור ויגן ויושיע חסם בו ונאמר אמן. הכבוד לאלוהינו, כבוד לתורה, בכהן קרבה, תעמוד אביבה בת חיה שרה, ואברהם הרשול הכהן, ברוך שנתן תורה לעם ישראל בקדושתו, ואתם הדבקים באדוני אלוהיכם, חיים כולכם היום.
ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
ברוך אדוני מבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר בחר בנו מכל העמים ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה.
אמן.
מעשר תעשר את כל תבואת זרעך היוצא שדה שנה שנה, ואכלת לפני אדוני אלוהיך במקום אשר יבחר לשכן שמו שם. מעשר דגנך תירושך ויצרך ובכורות בקרך וצאנך, למען תלמד ליראת אדוני אלוהיך כל הימים, וכי ירבה ממך הדרך כי לא תוכל שאתו, כי ירחק ממך המקום אשר יבחר אדוני אלוהיך לשום שמו שם. כי יברכך אדוני אלוהיך ונתת בכסף וצרת כסף בידך, והלכת אל המקום אשר יבחר אדוני אלוהיך בו, ונתת כסף בכל אשר תאווה נפשך בבקר ובצאן וביין ובשיכר ובכל אשר תשאלך נפשך, ואכלת שם לפני אדוני אלוהיך, ושמחת אתה וביתך, והלוי אשר בשעריך לא תעזבנו, כי אין לו חלק בנחלה עמך מקצה 3 שנים. תוציא כל מעשר תבואתך בשנה ההיא והנחת בשעריך, ובלוי כי אין לו חלק בנחלה עמך, והגר והיתום והאלמנה אשר בשעריך ואכלו ושבעו, למען יברכך אדוני אלוהיך בכל מעשה ידך אשר תעשה.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet b'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yeshar Kocheh. You're welcome to stand next to Ron. I know. I remember our last interchange about this. I was like, Andy's like, you're sending me away from the Torah so quick. I was like, this time Ron's here. How can you not stand next to him? Lonnie takes over the reading. We're beginning Deuteronomy chapter 15, also can be found on 1076. And Jay Kander is our Aliyah. Ya'amod. Yaakov Emet ben Moshe. Kalman Halevi.
Baruch hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Amorach Le'olam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
מקץ 7 שנים תעשה שמיטה, וזה דבר השמיטה שמות. כל בעל משה ידו אשר ישב ברעהו, לא יגוס את רעהו ואת אחיו, כי קרא שמיטה לאדוני. את הנוכרי תגוס ואשר יהיה לך את אחיך תשמט ידך. אפס כי לא יהיה לך אביון, כי ברך יברכך אדוני בארץ אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך נחלה לרשתה. רק אם שמוע תשמע בקול אדוני אלוהיך, לשמור לעשות את כל המצווה הזאת אשר אנוכי מצווך היום. כי אדוני אלוהיך ברכך כאשר דיבר לך, והבטת גויים רבים, ואתה לא תעבוד, ומשלת בגויים רבים, ובך לא ימשלו. כי יבך אביון מאחד אחיך ואחד שריך, בארצך אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך, לא תאמץ את לבבך. ולא תקפוץ את ידך מאחיך האביון, כי פתח תפתח את ידך לו, ואבית אביתנו די מחסרו אשר יחסר לו. ישמר לך פן יהיה דבר, אם לבבך בליה לאמור. קרבה שנת השבע, שנת השמיטה, וראה עמך באחיך האביון ולא תיתן לו, וקרא עליך אל אדוני והיה בך חטא. נתון תיתן לו ולא יראה לבבך ותיתך לו, כי בגלל הדבר הזה יברכך אדוני אלוהיך בכל מעשיך ובכל משלח ידיך. כי לא יחדל אביון בקרב הארץ, על כן אנוכי מצווך לאמור, פתח תפתח את ידך לאחיך לענייך ולאביונך בארצך, כי ימכר לך אחיך העברי או העברייה בעבדך 6 שנים, ובשנה השביעית תשלחנו חופשי מעמך, וכי תשלחנו חופשי מעמך לא תשלחנו ריקם. תעניק לו מצאנך ומבנך ומטבעך אשר ברכך אדוני אלוהיך תיתן לו. וזכרת כי עבד היית בארץ מצרים ויפתח אדוני אלוהיך, על כן אנוכי מצווך את הדבר הזה היום. והיה כי יאמר אליך לא אצא מעמך, כי אהבך ואת ביתך כי טוב לו עמך. ולקחת את המרצע ונתת באוזנו בדלת, והיה לך עבד עולם ואף לעמתך תעשה כן. לא יקשב עיניך בשלחך אותו חופשי מעמך, כי משנה שכר שכיר עבדך 6 שנים, וברכך אדוני אלוהיך בכל אשר תעשה.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yishar Koach. For our third aliyah, as Mira takes her place from her mother. So I just want to acknowledge something that's often like the elephant in the room, and that often Ron has been the solution for, which is it's pretty nerve-wracking to go up on the bima. It may surprise you to know that I know a lot of people who choose to come late to the service just so they can, I'm serious, just so they can avoid a gabbai asking them to do an honor. They're like, I hope they've all been passed out. And Ron has been in many ways the remedy for this. As we know, we'll hear the phrase soon about all of us being comfortable. So what I want to ask is that it's not scary to come to the bima, and we're here to help you. And I'm going to invite up at this time everyone who studied with Ron before they were 13, or 13 or before. And I'm asking you to come up. If you're like, I think I forgot the bracha, we're all going to support each other together. There we go. We got for those of us who are older, it gives you a chance to look younger. So anyone who studied with Ron at any point when they were 13 or before they were officially bar mitzvah. Ya'amdu Talmidei Ron Sussman.
Ready? 3, 2, 1.
Baruch.
Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
We're verses 19 through 23.
כל הבכור אשר יוולד בבקרך ובצאנך הזכר, תקדיש לאדוני אלוהיך, לא תעבוד בכור שורך ולא תגוס בכור צאנך, לפני אדוני אלוהינו תאכלנו שנה ושנה במקום אשר יבחר אדוני אתה וביתך, וכי יבוא פיסח או עיוור כל מומרה, לא תזבחנו לאדוני אלוהיך, בשעריך תאכלנו הטמא והטהור יחדיו, כצבי וכאיל, רק את דמו לא תאכל, על הארץ תשפכנו כמים.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Thank you so much. As Eitan takes the spot for the beginning of chapter 16 of Deuteronomy, I invite up everyone. Am I there yet? Just to make sure, good. Everyone who learned from Ron. It could be a piece of musaf. It could be he prepared you just one short piece for you to learn for someone else or for a simcha. If you've ever studied with Ron as an adult, will you please come up to the bima and honor him? I'm going to have Ron conduct this aliyah, just to make sure all of you feel.
Pretty much everybody here.
Meeting will continue right at the beginning of verse 16, page and 81.
Baruch Adonai Hamarach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Shemor et chodesh aviv ve'asita pesach l'Adonai Elohecha ki b'chodesh aviv hotziacha Adonai Elohecha mimitzrayim laila v'zabachta pesach l'Adonai Elohecha tzon ubakar B'makom asher yivchar Adonai l'shaken shemo sham lo tochal alav chametz shivat yamim tochal alav matzot lechem oni ki b'chipazon yatzata me'eretz Mitzrayim le'ma'an tizkor et yom tzedcha me'eretz Mitzrayim Kol yemei chayecha.
Asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei. Baruch atah noten haTorah.
And we can disperse temporarily. I want all of you back on the bima soon.
As Jeff takes over for Eitan, we're chapter 16, beginning verse 4. Invite Jeff to the bima, and for our aliyah, our chamishi, I'm inviting our chamishi up at this time. I thought it was Ya'amod Mordechai ben Yaakov HaChamishi. Okay, touch your tzitzit where Jeff shows you.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'na'atan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
V'lo yereh lecha se'or b'chol givucha shivat yamim v'lo yalin min habasar. Asher tizbach ba'erev b'yom harishon laboker lo tuchal lizboach et hapasach b'echad sherecha asher Adonai Elohecha noten lach ki imel hamakom asher yivchar Adonai Elohecha l'shakein shemo sham tizbach et hapesach ba'arev kevo hashemesh moed tzedcha mimitzrayim v'il shalta v'achalta B'makom asher yivchar Adonai Elohecha bo ufanita b'boker v'halachta lo'halecha sheshet yamim tocha matzot u'bayom hashvi'i atzeret l'Adonai Elohecha lo ta'aseh
Melacha. Touch that spot.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
He wasn't able to do
Yeah. I'm sorry. And as we call up for our Ishai takes over the spot as we are at our Shishi, and Sandy, I'm calling you up. Ta'amod.
I'm switching to Sandy and Leah.
Leah.
Hadido Babracha.
Bat Ido V'bracha. Ha-shishi. Sorry about that.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Ba'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Kiva Shavuot Yisparlach.
Start with
Achel Chemesh Bakamat Achel Yispor Shiva Shavuot. Vasita Chag Shavuot Adonai Elohecha Misa Nadvat Yadcha Asher Titen Asher Barechecha Adonai Elohecha V'samachta Lifnei Adonai Elohecha Ata Ubincha Ubitecha Abdecha V'ametecha Halevi Asher Bisharecha V'hager V'yatom Ha'almana Asher B'kirbecha B'makom Asher Yibchar Adonai Elohecha Neshaken Shmo Sham V'zacharta Ki Eved Hayita B'Mitzrayim V'shamarta V'asita Et HaChukim Ha'eleh.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam, nata b'tocheinu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Yeshar Kocheh. As Marnie takes over the duties at the Torah, and I believe we were toward the bottom of the column. And our Michelle Israel comes to the bima. Ta'amod Malka Bat Liel Bihaya Hashvi'i.
Baruch Atah Adonai.
No, wait,
Oh, I'm sorry,
actually, I'll
I'm
have you
sorry.
touch first.
Okay.
No.
Baruch Atah
Baruch
Adonai.
Atah.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Ba'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hambarach Leolam Ba'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Verse 13.
Amen. Chag HaSukkot tasa lecha shivat yamim, ve'asvecha migarncha u'mikvecha, v'samachta b'chagecha ata u'bitcha u'bitcha ve'avadcha ve'amatcha ve'halevi ve'hager ve'hayatom ha'almana asher bisharecha Shivat yamim tachok l'Adonai Elohecha b'makom asher yibchar Adonai ki yivarechecha Adonai Elohecha b'chol tevuatcha u'b'chol masei yadecha v'haytach sameach shlosha pa'amim b'shana yira'eh chol zechorcha et pnei Adonai Elohecha B'makom asher yivchar b'chag hamatzot u'b'chag hashavot u'b'chag hasukot v'lo yira'eh et pnei Adonai rekam ish kamatnat yado kev'yirkat Adonai Elohecha asher natan lo.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam, nata b'tocheinu. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. No, I'm serious. We put the second scroll next to the first. We may be seated. Time for the. Well, it shows that you're on your toes, quite literally. This is our time for our blessing for those who are in need of healing. And I'm going to ask for names as usual for you to raise your hand and I'll go around. Some of you may not have seen the system I did of Dvar Torah on several weeks ago, perhaps a month ago or so, which a system that we're trying a little differently. We've been praying for so many people, and I have a list that everybody whose name you give me, I pray for throughout the week because I have much more time in my morning Amidah and my evening Amidah. But during the service, what we're going to do is Rabbi Doberson is going to help me out today. Usually it's Meg Bernstein. I'm going to ask Rabbi Doberson to come up here. we're going to have the entire list read as I'm going around taking names. So all the prayers are being read with connection to the Torah, and they're all in our thoughts. If you've given us a name for the list and I have the name and I'm praying for it, but you're here, still say the name out loud, because it's important that you're also praying for the name and not just the congregation. So it's nothing wrong if Rabbi Daberson is praying the name under his breath, at the Torah, and you're also saying it out loud. So you'll see how it goes, and we'll be together as we conclude. Misha Berach Avoteinu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah Hu Yivarech Uvirapeh. And as Rabbi Daberson begins. ואת כל החולים בקהילה קדושה, הקדוש ברוך הוא ימלא רחמים עליהם, להחזיקם רפאתם וישלח להם מהרה רפואה שלמה מן השמיים, רפואת הנפש ורפואת הגוף בתוך שאר חולי ישראל, שבת ימי לזעוק ורפואה קרבה לבוא, השנה בעגלה בזמן קריב, ונאמר אמן. יתגדע ויקדש שמי רבה, ויעמד דברה קדושי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בזמן קריב, ויאמרו יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעולם עולמי עלמיה יתברך, יתברך וישתבח ויפאר ויתרומם וינשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמי דקודשה לעילא מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירם דיעמה וימהרו. We call up our first lifter and dresser. Ya'amdu l'hagbaha v'ligli la rishona. V'zot Torah asher Moshe l'nei Yisrael Yom Hazikaron Ceremony. We ask Matt Kaplan to come forward for the reading of the Torah. I've got a spot here, and Danny Cutler, our maftir. Ya'amod Daniel Shlomo ben Aharon Zelig b'simcha ha'amaftir. And we may be seated. The reading for the maftir can be found on page 932, Numbers 28, starting with verse 19. Baruch Adonai Borach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
V'yikavtem she'ula Adonai parim b'nei bakar shmanim ba'elecha had. V'shiva kvasim b'nei shana tmimim yiyu lachem u'minchatam solek b'lulav hashemen שלושה עשרונים לפר ושני עשרונים לעיל תעשו עשרון תעשה לכבש האחד ישיבת הכבשים צעיר חטאת אחד לכפר עליכם מלבד עולת הבוקר אשר לעלות התמיד תעשו את אלה כאלה תעשו ליום שבעת ימים לכם ישרך מכוח לאדוני על עולת התמיד יעשה ונזכו וביום השביעי מקרא קודש יהיה לכם כל מלאכת עבודה
לא תעשו.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולמך בתוכנו ברוך אתה אדוני
Amen. Yeshako. If the temple is magically rebuilt in the next 10 minutes, Matt Kaplan is your man for knowing what it is we're supposed to be doing. We call up our second lifter and roller. Ya'amdu akbahav ligliva sheni. I'm glad I don't have to tell you to rise. Ron has you trained well. Torah asher Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael Ashlosha devarim Ashlosha devarim Ashlosha devarim ha'olam omed al haTorah v'al ha'avodah v'al gemilut hasadim al haTorah v'al ha'avodah v'al gemilut hasadim Ose shalom bimroma Uyase shalom aleinu Ve'al Yisrael Ve'imru amen Yase shalom Shalom aleinu Yisrael Yase shalom Shalom aleinu Ve'al Yisrael. And we are seated. The Haftarah can be found on page 1316. It's from Isaiah chapter 10. And I just want to let everybody know that I don't see too many children, for the reason being that we have a lot of people who may not be aware of what we've been up to. We've been really starting a lot of children's activities on Saturday morning so that people can really make Shabbos here at Beth Israel, even when they have children that they're caring for, and children are excited to come to Beth Israel. So all of that started 18 minutes ago, and I think they knew that before I did. But Tat Shabbat is taking place, and there are also elementary school age children activities downstairs, enrichment activities. After the Haftarah, we will be having Yizkor. So I wanted to give you a heads up that following the Haftarah, Yizkor will be taking place, so you can prepare appropriately.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar b'nbiim tovim, v'katav b'divreihem hana'amarim yamesh. Baruch atah Adonai abocher b'torah u'Moshe avdo u'Yisrael amo ובנביאי האמת והצדק. עוד היום בדוב לעמוד יחפש ידו ההר בציון גבעת ירושלים. הנה אדון ארוני צבאות מסעף פורה במרצה ורמי החומה גדועים והגבוהים ישפלו, וניקף סבבי היער בברזל, והלבנון באדיר יפול, ויצא חוצר מגזע ישי, ונצר משורשיו יפרח, ונחל רוח אדוני, רוח חכמה ובינה, רוח עצה וגבורה, רוח דת ויראת אדוני, בהריחו יראת אדוני, ולא למראה עיניו ישפוט, ולא למשמע אזניו יוכיח, ושפט בצדק תדלים, והוכיח במישור לענבי הארץ, והיכה ארץ בשבט פיו, וברוח שפתיו ימית רשע, והיה צדק אזור מתניו, האמונה אזור חלציו, וגר זאב עם כבש, ונמר עם גדי ירבץ, ועגל וכפיר ומרי יחדיו, ונער קטון נוהג בם, ופרה ודוב תירנה, יחדיו ירבצו ילדיהן, ואריה כבקר יאכל כבן, ושישע יונק על חורפתן, ים מאורה צפוני, וכמו ידו חדה, לא יראו ולא ישחיתו בכל הר קדושי, כי מלאה הארץ דעה את אדוני כמים לים מכסים. והיה ביום ההוא שורש ישי אשר עומד לנס עמים, אליו גויים ידרשו, והייתה מנוחתו כבוד. והיה ביום ההוא יוסיף אדוני שנית ידו לקנות את שאר עמו, אשר יישאר מאשור וממצרים, ומפטרוס ומכוש, ומאלם ומשינר ומחמת, ומאיי הים. ונשא נס לגויים, ויאסף נדחי ישראל, ונפוצות יהודה יקבץ, מארבע כנפות הארץ. ושרה קנאת אפרים, בצורי יהודה יכרתו. אפרים לא יקנא את יהודה, ויהודה לא יצור את אפרים. ויפו בחטף פלישתים ימה, יחדיו יבוזו את בני קדם. אדום ומואב משלוח ידם, ובני עמון משמרתם. והחרים מאדוני את לשון ים מצרים, והנה ידו על הנהר בים רוחו, והיקהו לשבעה נחלים, והדריך בנעליים. והייתה מסילה לשאר עמו, אשר יישאר מאשור, כאשר הייתה לישראל ביום עללותו מארץ מצרים. ואמרת ביום ההוא, עודך אדוני, כי ענפת בי, ישב אבך ותנחמני. הנה אל ישועתי, אבטח ולא אפחד, כי עזי וזמרת יה אדוני, ויהי לי לישועה. ושופט מים בששון, ממעייני הישועה. ואמרתם ביום ההוא, הודו לאדוני, קראו בשמו, הודיעו בעמים עלילותיו. הזכירו כי נשגב שמו. זמרו אדוני, כי גאות עשה, מודעת זאת בכל הארץ. צהלי ורוני יושבת ציון, כי גדול בקרבך גד קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות. האל הנאמן האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו, ונאמנים דבריך. ודבר אחד מדבריך, הכל לא ישוב ריקם, כי אל מלך נאמן ורחמן אתה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הנאמן בכל דבריו. על ציון כי היא בית חיינו, ולעלו בת נפש תושיע במהרה בימינו. ברוך אתה אדוני, ומשמח ציון בבניה. שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו באליהו הנביא עבדך, ובבית דוד משיחך, במהרה יבוא ויגאל ליבנו. על כיסאו לא ישב זר, ולא ינחלו עוד אחרים את כבודו, כי בשם קדשך נשבעת לו, שלא יכפה נרו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן דוד. על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה ועל יום חג המצות הזה, שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנוחה, לששון ולשמחה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפיך חי תמיד לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת בישראל והזמנים.
We're on page 188 of the Siddur, and I ask you to turn to it now if you're staying for Yizkor. Yizkor has several functions. One of them is that when you come to the actual section or sections that you recite, for those that you're remembering, that you say that you have given charity, you have done tzedakah in this world because of the memory of that person. So one function I ask you when you get to that portion is to think of an act of tzedakah or the giving of tzedakah in this world that you can do. It doesn't have to be monetary. It can also be the way we make memories turn into blessings in this world through our actions. What action can you take, do you take regularly, or will you take specifically as the inheritor of this memory? So that's the language of Yizkor itself. It also serves the function of having the reminder to make this phone call. When the curtains open of the ark, it is not the only time to have a phone call to the neshama of the person or people that you're remembering, but it's a ring. Yizkor, when that ark opens, that phone is ringing. Have that conversation. The prayer is short. You still have time. What do you want that spirit to hear you say? And you may have done it just this morning. You may have done it on your walk or drive over here. You may have done it visiting a grave recently. You may have done it, or you will do it at Father's Day and Mother's Day upcoming, or birthday, or an anniversary, or a memory. But do it again now. Where are you at in your life? What do you have to say to that spirit? What does that soul have to say to you? We also recognize that not everyone for whom we are saying Kaddish may have been an easy presence in our life. You may have heard that not all human beings and not all Jews are easy, and it has been my experience as well. And that doesn't mean that we don't have that phone call. Sometimes it means we have extra things to say when we're having that connection to the world to come. And sometimes it shows how far we've come, what we're sharing, and how we hear what we hear said back. I'm going to remind us as we open up the Yizkor booklet, the beautiful memories of our beloved Victor Rosenberg, Marcel and Erwin Pollack, Lorraine Nadelman, Al Hermelin, Aryeh Greenberg, Thomas Eastope, and Aaron Zelig Cutler. And there are more names that have joined them since the book was published, and they will be in the book that will be upcoming for this coming High Holy Days. We love them and we remember them. Do me a favor for a moment. You're on page 188, right? Or 189. Turn back but one page, meaning one prayer page, to 187. What's the prayer that's here before Yizkor in the booklet on 187? It's Adon Olam. For those who may not be aware, we don't talk enough, I know, and it's partly my fault, about death and about love during death and healing around death. But when you are at someone's bedside, and there may be little hope or there may be some, we know that we do a vidui, a special prayer that has the Shema. But if you're looking for another prayer to say, the customary prayer is Adon Olam. It helps us to understand the lyrics in it. It's not my story to tell, but I sometimes am so touched by other stories so this is a prayer that I sing, and I love singing to people in hospital rooms who may look like they are transitioning to another world and can't hear me. But it is not just my experience, but the experience of so many chaplains and so many of those who are the loving angels of hospice, that there's something special about singing, that we see changes, we see motions during the singing. So we think of how we sing those words: my God, my hope, my refuge in distress, my shelter sure, my cup of life, with goodness real and limitless. I place my spirit in God's care. My body too can feel God near. When I sleep, as when I wake, God is with me. I have no fear. Some of us are not so fortunate to be with our loved ones when they pass, when they transition. I know that Ron has shared with me that as he has recited and sung this prayer, that two of his mothers transitioned during the final words. And he said that when I first got here in my first Shabbat, I said, when we do these final words, let's finish strong. He froze up. He's like, because those are very special words to him. And then he told me, then I realized that's what it's saying. Let's finish strong. Yahado avkid ruchi ve'eti shan bi'ayira ve'im ruchi geviati Adonai velo yira. So we turn to page 188. I'm going to ask you to pick a reading to do silently. There are readings on page 190 and 191 to prepare yourself, or in the booklet to pick one of the readings that I've included at the very beginning, one of the poems on that first page. Just let yourself find a reading either in the booklet or on 190 and 191. And I want you to do that reading while I sing the traditional liturgy. When I'm done the liturgy, I'll ask you to rise. We'll find our proper paragraph and I will open the curtain. Adonai ma'adam bateda ehu ben enosh v'at chashvehu Adam lehevel damam yamav ketzel hovel Baboker yatzitz v'chala la'erev yemolel v'yavesh Tashev enosh adaka v'tomer shuvu v'nei adam shuva Adonai ad matai v'hi nachem al avadecha shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid ki mimini bal emot lachen samach libi vayagel kivodi af besari yishkon laveta. We rise, the phone has rung. 192 and forward. Male Rachamim, Shochim Ba'amirohim, Amse Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, B'ma'alot Kedoshim Utehorim, Kezohar Harakia Mahasirim, L'nishmot Kol Ele, Shehizkarnu Hayom Livracha, Shehalchu La'olamam, Began Eden, Tihi Menuchatam, Hana Baal Harachamim, Hastirim B'tzeter Kenafecha La'olamim, Utzor B'tzor HaChayim, Et Nishmotehem, Adonai hu nachlatam, Yanuchu v'shalom, al mishkavotehem, v'nomar, Amen. Join me on page 197 in Hebrew. Mizmor LeDavid. Adonai ro'i lo efsar, binot desha yarbitzeni, amei minufot inahaleni, nafshi yeshoveh, yancheni v'maglei tzedek v'ma'an shemo, gam ki elech b'geit samava, lo irara ki ata imadi, shivtecha u'mishantecha, hema inachamuni, ta'arof lefanai shochan neged sorodai, Dishanta Bashemen Roshi, Kosi Revaya, Achto Vachesed Yirdefuni Koyime Chayai, Shavti Bebeit Adonai, Le'orech Lamed. You remain standing for the mourner's cottage. Yikadal v'yikadash shemera, v'yalma divrach kirurtei, v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayei tefo beit Yisrael, v'adalah v'zman tari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabam mevarach, le'olam lamei amaya. Yibarach v'yishtabach, v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei kudesha le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran v'ama v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'imru. Oseh shalom b'mroma hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. We may be seated. May their memories continue to bring blessings to this world through you and through others. I always find it a hard transition to go back to the joy of Ashrei and Torah service from Yizkor. So can we just transition by singing the final sentence of the Kaddish? Oseh shalom b'mroma, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu. We return to the Torah service on page 148. Bob Ehrenheim returns to the Bima.
Ikum porkan min shamaya.
Kum porkan min Shemaya.
Ishlach beracha v'hatzlacha v'chol maseh yedehem im kol Yisrael amen.
151.
Ashrei Yosef Eitzecha od Yarucha Selah.
Ashrei Ha'am Shekachalo.
Ashrei Ha'am Shekachalo. Tila David Aramim Chalhai HaMelech Parasha Shimcha Le'olam Va'ed.
B'chol yom haratecha la'shimcha le'olam va'ed.
Adol Adonai Lo Me'od V'likroto in Cheker.
Dor l'dor Shabbat ma'asecha u'gvuratecha yahidu.
Adar Kavod Hodecha V'divrei Niflatecha Sicha.
Bezuzoretecha yomeru u'dulatcha asafrecha.
Zecher Tzutgat Yabiu V'tzitchatecha Yiranenu.
Chanun v'rachum Adonai eret ha'pam u'tochaseh.
Tov Adonai L'Kol V'rachamav Al Kol Ma'asaha.
Yoduch Adonai kol ma'asecha chasidecha yevakucha.
V'chol Malchutka Yomeru U'Ruatecha Yidaberu.
V'yivnei adat gevuratecha v'nadar ma'alchuto.
Malchutka Malchut Kol Olamim U'Memshaltecha B'chol Dohor V'Ador.
Somei Torah l'kol hanoflim, sokef l'kol hafufim.
Einei Kol Elecha Yisaberu V'Yata Noten Lachem Et HaKlam B'Ito.
Poteach et yadecha, maskil l'chocha ratzo.
Tzadik Adonai B'chol Deracha V'Chasiv B'chol Ma'asaha.
Kal rov Adonai l'kol korah, kol asher yikrahu ha'tehem.
Yaser Yet Shavatam Yishma V'Yoshiem.
Shomer Adonai kol ahava, et kol shaliva.
Tzilat Adonai Adaber Pshi V'Yor Kabasar Shem Kodsho Li'Lamed.
V'anachnu nirarech yam, me'ata v'ad olam.
Hallelujah, Shem Adonai, Kinishkav Shemo Levado.
Hodah. Vaya.
It's more than David.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Shema Yishtayahu Layoh HaKodesh. Kol Adonai. Kol
Great.
Bottom of 154. We remain standing as we turn back to the bottom of 148 for the prayer for our country. This is a moment I've waited 3.5 years for. Beth Jarvis is now on the bima.
Only for Ron.
Only for
Our God and God of our ancestors, we ask your blessings for our country, for its government, for its leaders and advisors, for all who exercise just and rightful authority. Teach them insights from your Torah, that they may administer all affairs of state fairly, that peace and security, happiness and prosperity, justice and freedom may forever abide in our midst.
Creator of all flesh,
bless all the inhabitants of our country with your spirit. May citizens of all races and creeds forge a common bond in true harmony, to banish hatred and bigotry, and to safeguard the ideals and free institutions that are provided for our country. May this land under your providence be an influence for good throughout the world, uniting all people in peace and freedom, helping them to fulfill the vision of your prophet. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they experience war anymore. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. Shkov. Page 149, prayer for the state of Israel.
Avinu Shabashamayim, Tzur Yisrael v'Goalo, Barech et Medinat Yisrael, Reshit Tzmichat Geulatenu. Hagen alea be'avrat chasdecha, ufros alea sukat shlomecha. ושלח אורך ויעמידך לראשיה, שריה ויועציה, ותקנם בעצי טובה מלפניך. חזק את ידי מגיני ארץ קודשנו, והנחילם אלוהים ישועה, ועטרת ניצחון תעטרם, ונתת שלום בארץ, ושמחת עולם ליושביה, ונאמר אמן.
Avinu Shabashmaim, rock and redeemer of the people Israel, bless the state of Israel with its promise of redemption. Shield it with your love, spread over it the shelter of your peace. Guide its leaders and advisors with your light and your truth. Help them with your good counsel. Strengthen the hands of those who defend our holy land. Deliver them, crown their efforts with triumph. Bless the land with peace and its inhabitants with lasting joy. And let us say, Amen.
Amen. A prayer for peace.
May we see the day when war and bloodshed cease, when a great peace will embrace the whole world. The nation will not threaten nation, and mankind will not again know war. For all who live on earth shall realize we have not come into being to hate or to destroy. We have come into being to praise, to labor, and to love.
Compassionate God, bless the leaders of all nations with the power of compassion.
Fulfill the promise conveyed in Scripture. I will bring peace to the land, and you shall lie down, and no one shall terrify you.
Rid the
Land of vicious beasts, and it shall not be ravaged by war. Let love and justice flow like a mighty stream. Let peace fill the earth as the waters fill the sea, and let us say, Amen.
We may be seated. Words all the more poignant as the prayer for peace was composed from the words of Rabbi Nachman by Rabbi Nachman, a Bratslav successor who came from Ukraine. It is my honor to turn things over to Matt and Jeff.
Not sure what to make of that reaction, but I'll take it. I'll take it. Ron, could you please join us on the beamer? Shabbat Shalom, everyone, and Chag Sameach. Mazel Tov, Ron, on the celebration of your career as Beth Israel's ritual assistant, as I think everyone knows from the beautiful video message she sent a couple of days ago. President of the congregation, Deborah Ball, couldn't be with us today. So you're stuck with two past presidents. And past president, of course, did the best job in the world.
Wait, we're the backup team?
Yeah, we are.
Like, we weren't good enough to be on the 18th, so
Nope.
we're the backup team?
That's right.
I'm not feeling very comfortable up here.
Much better.
Let's continue.
Yeah,
You're
and
good
so
at that.
friends, that was an in-person demonstration of the magic of Ron's comforting powers that we've heard so much about on the Bima. Ron, we're here to thank you on behalf of the congregation for all you've done to make Beth Israel the warm, welcoming congregation we all love.
So Ron, we've seen your work week in and week out. The many, many kids you've tutored for B'nai Mitzvah, including 3 of ours. Not together, but the many more kids and their families you've rehearsed with to get them to feel comfortable up here. And while we've all joked about that, a huge part of Simchas is really helping families to be prepared and to know what to expect so they can enjoy the special moments rather than worrying about what's going on. And we've certainly seen this with our kids.
And one of the things we all love about Beth Israel is how participatory our services are. And we know how much you've done to recruit a bevy of Torah readers and service leaders. And that includes new folks that you've gotten involved in the services, as well as keeping very careful records and coming back to us 5 years later and saying, you read that, you remember it, you can do that.
Even if we hadn't.
And your emails and phone calls asking us to help out always brought a smile to our faces and made it easy to have only one answer.
And so Ron, in recognition of all you've done for the congregation, we will be presenting you with a book of well wishes and thanks from the Beth Israel family. It'll have a cover that looks something like this. But we're not giving it to you now because we want to leave some more time for people to submit their tributes.
It's kind of like the 8th day of Pesach, some extra time to enjoy a little bit more matzah.
But better than that. So an email will go out after the holiday reminding people about how you can add your best wishes. And we also wanted to know that the new fund set up in your honor has raised over $50,000. This will support continued learning at Beth Israel, and the fund balance, shall we say, is quite comfortable. See what we did there?
Finally, before we turn things over to a special guest, we're also here as representatives of the planning committee for this event, along with Linda Bender, Bunky Eliakim, Jackie Kaufman, Pam Landau, Michelle Lashan, and Carol Feineman, Zichrona Livracha. We thought it would be great to present you with a memento from us to remind you of this celebration.
And we knew that it would be tacky to ask you to make a beautiful stained glass window for yourself.
Although we didn't think about it.
Yeah. So instead, we took some lessons in stained glass making through an online company called mchagel.com. Must be an Irish group or something.
No, it's M. Chagall.
M. Chagall. That makes more sense. That makes more sense. So, after just one lesson, we are proud to present you with the fruits of our labor from one group of congregants to another. Very exciting.
Drum roll, drum roll. Okay. Just one lesson.
Now, you notice that we're abstract artists here, so we've written in some notes on this to help you make sense and interpret this. We are sure that it will grace the windows of your home for minutes to come.
So Ron, once again, on behalf of the board, the congregation, the planning committee, and Jeff and me, thank you for more than 20 years of dedicated service. We look forward to hearing you from the Bima today and in the future, and to celebrating many more symphonies. A real gift. Let's turn things over to some family members who might look familiar. Yeah. How can anyone follow the Matt and Jeff show? Thank you so much.
Hi, y'all. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, Abba and Ima, and we appreciate you. I know we're a last-minute addition. We weren't on the schedule, but we have been thinking about you quite a bit, and we did want to share something with you. And it is a bit more sincere, although this is a beautiful piece that I do hope is on your window. Ron is, in addition to many things, and our father, he is a craftsperson. As you see, if you didn't know, that is one of his famous stained glass pieces on the front of the program. You can see more at ronsglass.wordpress.com. And there's so much that many people are going to say, so we're just going to be really, really brief about how much we love and appreciate you. Many people have talked and will talk about him making us comfortable on the Bima, and we are 3 that are included. But if you've ever been up here to read Torah, you've handled a yad as your, not a wand. It looks like a wand. You've handled a yad, and you've seen our Abba standing next to you, gabaying with his, I call him like his first base coach sort of hand signals, if you've seen those. So we have a small gift, and it is a real gift. It's a yad from us in a box. And the yad has some of your hand signals in case you forget them, some of the Torah tropes carved on them. But there's also a brief message. I know it was a last minute idea. We had to do something. A message that we recruited our Aunt Lynn Avadenka, who's another phenomenal artist in the family, to do some handset type that says, Vishinantam levanecha, which, if you're not familiar, is are a couple words from the Shema. And it says in the Shema, I had to bring this Siddur up here to remind me. Teach them diligently to your children. As Lynn reminded me, perhaps another translation is repeat them diligently to your children. And all we are here to say is how much we have heard your lessons, listened to your lessons, internalize your lessons. There's more that we could ever sum up on a bima, and we just want to say thank you for everything you have ever taught us. We love you very much.
That's okay. I want to thank, first of all, the committee for the opportunity to speak this morning. Are you going to stand up here? Or are you going to go back? You can stand. It's okay. You can stand. It's such an honor. At the end of the Torah reading today, we read Ish Kamatnat Yado Kiberkat Adonai Elohecha Asher Natan Lach, that people should bring to the holy place. They should bring to the holy place each according to his or her blessing, to what they have been blessed with. Ron, thank you for sharing so much of what you have been blessed with us. Your talents, your time, your energy. We appreciate it always, every day. That's the Mishnah, now the Gemara. Now a little bit of expansion. And I'll start with a little history lesson. I came to the congregation in 1988. And when I came here, one of the things that really excited me most about coming to this congregation was that it was participatory. I don't have any problem with cantors. Cantors are wonderful. But I love the idea of a congregation where people participate as Torah readers, as Shlichei Tzibur. And we had a great group of people when I came here, very, very capable and dedicated people who were reading Torah and leading services. There was only one problem with them. It was a very small group. And unfortunately for the congregation, in the first few years I was here, it became a little bit smaller because people left town, people graduated school, and it was hard to find new people. And this was before email. So when and it was my job at the time to find Torah readers and davens, when I wanted to find somebody to read or to daven, it was phone calls and answering machines. Can you hear? It was phone calls. Thank you. Sorry. It was phone calls. It was answering machines. It was back and forth. And it was taking a whole lot of time. So I went to the board and I said, I'd like to propose an idea that we hire, so I'm going to call it a ritual assistant. And this person will give out Torah readings and find people to daven. But I wanted to tell you one thing. I said, my vision is that this is a purely administrative job, purely behind the scenes. It's going to just be sitting in an office and making some phone calls, and that's all that it's going to be. And maybe they'll help out a little. Our bar mitzvah calendar was expanding. Maybe they'll help a little bit, but it's not going to be that big a deal, right? It's going to be, I'm not stepping away from this. I said, just administrative. Well, we hired Ron Sussman. And let me tell you something. To his great credit, and to the absolute benefit of the congregation every single day, there was no behind the scenes. There was no administrative. It was administrative, of course, but it was about people. And that's what it was about. And it became not just filling out names on a piece of paper, which would have been the easiest thing, but it was about connecting with people and helping people. Oh, I'll use the words to feel comfortable on the beam. I'll come back to that a little bit later. But it was this idea of making sure that what was happening was that it was a person-to-person kind of thing. And there was no one better to do that than Ron, because of your talents, because of your abilities, because of the way that you react to every individual. And going back to this Torah portion, helping them to bring out their gifts, what they have and their talents, to use on the bema. And how many times did we hear Ron say, Doesn't matter if all you want to do is open the ark, that's great, but we want you up on the bima. And to say to bar and bat mitzvah kids, just do a little more than you think you're able to do. Just challenge yourself a little bit. And that really, really was the essence of what this was about. And so thankfully, this job did not remain administrative, but became very much a person-to-person endeavor. Thanks to you, Ron. And I just want to say one other thing about this and about Ron and understanding a little bit more about that line. You made me feel comfortable on the bima. You know, when I hear that, I hear something different. And I'll tell you what I hear. You made me feel comfortable in shul. You made me feel comfortable in the synagogue. You know, Ron, even though you're quite a few years older than I am, that's a joke. That's a joke. We come from the same vintage. We come from the same experience. We both grew up in big Jewish community congregations that were extremely active and that were very much a part of our lives. And that's the way it should be. Because I believe, and I'm going to presume, it's a little bit of a presumption, but you and I have talked long enough and spent enough time talking and enough time thinking about what life was like when we grew up to say this with confidence, that at least for 10 months out of the year, the synagogue is the center of our Jewish lives. I'll give the 2 months of summer camp, you know, as being that because I know how important it is to you and it is to me as well. But it is the center of the Jewish community, the center of our Jewish lives. And if we want our kids to really feel comfortable in the Jewish community, and if we as adults want to feel comfortable in the Jewish community, I believe we need to feel comfortable inside the shul, inside the synagogue, for all that it represents. And so when I hear people say, you made me feel comfortable on the bima, I say, especially with our young people, when they say it, there are kids who, as they grow, that's going to become more important. That how many kids have we heard from who, as they've grown, are now members of congregations on their own, not to mention those who have become rabbinical students and rabbis. That's another story entirely of which we should all be proud. But just all of us watching our kids say, not only was I comfortable on the bima, but I was comfortable in shul. And there's a lot of people responsible for that. And there are a lot of people responsible for it through the years and responsible for it today. And Ron, you're certainly one of those responsible for it. So from my heart, from all of us, thank you. Mazel tov to you. Thank you for helping us bring out our individual gifts and making them part of the congregation life. Thank you.
As Rabbi Dalberson thanked the committee for the opportunity to speak, I'd also like to just ask you to take a moment again to look at the sponsors today. It is such a long list. I can't thank them because it would take all of my time. Look at all the people, their names who gave, and there are more coming in the tribute booklet. There are more coming with, including my message and others. I want to thank everyone who sponsored this Shabbat. I only have two things to say because I know we want to hear from Ron. The first is this. I'm asking you to do this for me. I want you to think of one time Ron was teaching you something, or Ron was getting you comfy on the bima, or Ron was running you through an aliyah, or Ron was pointing to something you should be paying attention to or reading from, or one time Ron was helping you prepare for a simcha. Ron was telling you could do something you weren't sure you could do or wanted to do. Or one time you ran into Ron at Trader Joe's or at Minyan or in conversation after services. So I just want you to think of that moment. That quiet moment with Ron. Okay, now I want to tell you something. The next time I saw Ron, The conversation started with you. Every time I see Ron, and Ron practically lived here for most of the last 3.5 years, it would start with, I gotta tell you, I ran into, and use your name. I could start using names. I ran into you. I ran into you. I ran into people. I ran into. I gotta tell you what. And he would tell me how great you are, right? She's amazing. I can't believe she's a sophomore at college, right? They're amazing. I can't believe like they're doing this now. And so most of my meetings rarely got much work done because I was hearing about each of the individual times he saw you. I don't know if I've ever known such a person who is so loving and positive. So it goes beyond the moment you're with him. He has to tell you. I always think of Ron as pointing because he's always like, and he's like, I gotta tell you this. I'm like, Ron, we have 5 minutes to roll the scrolls. I know, but I just ran into the second thing I want to tell you. I want to tell you about a very important way Ron has been there for me emotionally. Ron always says to me, and he's always meant it, that I'm always there for you. And I know it's true because he's always there for me. It's not easy leading Beth Israel. I think of Beth Israel, I know it's a bittersweet metaphor, but it's honest. I think of Beth Israel as the giving tree. For over 100 years, she gives, spinning off major institutions, seeding the Jewish seminaries, Jewish communities, civic communities around the country and in Israel around the globe with its zera, with its offspring. But the daily in and out is the experience of the mother tree. Feels like people are quick to say that their time with Beth Israel was in the past. It is often that people say, I remember those times fondly. And I know that they return when they need us for a minyan or a kaddish or a baby naming, and those are wonderful times. But there are a lot of times where it's a little bit too empty. And we know all of the children have gone off and grown up. We want to see the people we love here more often. The mother waits, and sometimes the child visits, and more often than not, it's brief. I think there should be a successor to the mother tree, and to the giving tree, to that book. I think there needs to be an extra chapter. And their extra chapter is that there's a child, and it's a child you haven't heard from. And the child is always there behind the mother tree listening and never is leaving. And every time you go to see the mother tree and you're like, I remember growing up there and I remember this and I remember my kid's bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah. There's this little child or older child, growing child who's there watching you from the trees. That's Ron. He's the one who shows up before everyone else. He's the one who stays until everyone is gone. He's like the child missing from the story, who sits with the tree in the pages of the book that are lost because there are no eyes to see it. He loves Beth Israel more than anyone I know. I have found Ron here in the sanctuary, laid on a Thursday winter's night, with the lights low, if not off. And I'm closing up and think everyone's gone. And Ron's in here. And sometimes I just see him caressing the wood paneling. You know, leaning with his hand. You know how Ron does. You know, with the hand. Sitting in a back row. And he's like, I'm waiting for someone for a rehearsal. I'm fine. He's like the one at the mother tree who loves her and is always there when we come. It's that act of love that means so much to me. He's smoothing out the wrinkles in the Torah coverings. He sits in an empty sanctuary before we get here and after we leave, and he points to empty seats, remembering the people who used to sit there. remembering them with love and memories of blessings. And I don't know exactly what that word is. I've been trying to think about it. Is it caring? Is it love? Is it affection? Compassion? And I think the word that I've settled on for Ron is, I think it's reverence. I think it's yirah. He has a kind of love and awe and revering that he has for each one of us, and for the Torah, for Israel, and for family, and for Beth Israel. You know that if Ron had his position that Rabbi Daberson so brilliantly created and the board, if he was just across the river in Canada at a conservative traditional congregation, it is very likely that his title would have been Reverend, which was an old way North American, especially North American, way of referring to the person who led ritual. He is one of reverence. He is our Reverend. We also use the word revere, the Torah does, to honor parents. That's the last thing I want to say. The way he loves the mother tree of Beth Israel and its oak body and the memories of love that she possesses is what has touched my heart in Ron. The way he cared for Zelig and the way he cared for Simi. And I wish I got to see the way he cared for his own parents, because I know it would have moved me very, very deeply. And that's also a kind of love of the mother tree, the one who doesn't see the person who's helping someone get in a car and taking them to a doctor's appointment. This is love that goes on when no one's looking. Some people have said that who we really are is who we are when no one is looking. In those moments, Ron is a person of reverence and a person of love. Since Rabbi Daberson quoted the Torah, it leaves me the Haftarah to quote from today. When Isaiah, Yeshayahu is referring to the person who will come, who will save us all. He writes, V'nacha alav ruach Adonai. The spirit of Adonai shall alight upon him. Ruach chochma uvina, a spirit of wisdom and of insight. Ruach etzah ugevura, a spirit of counsel and of valor. Ruach da'at, spirit of devotion. V'yirat Adonai, and reverence for God. Ron, would you come up and share words with us?
Shabbat shalom. I am so uncomfortable. How's that?
Don't move around so much.
Okay. Hoshia et amecha uvarech et nachlatecha urim. Save thy people and bless thine inheritance, and tend them and carry them forever. Hoshia et amecha, we say those words every weekday, every Shabbat, every Chag. It's one of those phrases that jump off the page at me. Why? I was born just a few years really after the Holocaust. Most of my teachers were Holocaust survivors. There was a strong tradition to never count Jews. So how do you count men, and only men, in a minyan? You use those four words, Hoshia et amecha, uvorech et nachlatecha, urim v'nasem ad haolam. we got a minion. Judaism has always been part of my life, junior congregation, junior USY, but at 13, it became part of my daily ritual at 6:15 a.m. Mr. Grossberg would stop in front of my house and take me to the 6:30 minion, because if I had attended the 7:30 minion, I'd be late to junior high school. B'nai Moshe was a wonderful place to grow up. The congregation adopted me. At 14, I was actually paid to work Shabbat mornings with the junior congregation. Numbers have always been a huge part of my life. The daily minion at 13, married, like everyone else back then, at 22, a public school teacher position at 24, and Abba at 26. The fact is, once you've got me, you're stuck. I taught in the public school system for 37 years until I was drafted by that wonderful, talented, charming Deborah Ball, the dean of the School of Education, to come and teach for her. That was my shortest gig, only 6 years. I managed Tavor, a resident summer camp for a dozen summers, and worked with Habonim, of which I am so proud, for 35. And then in 1994, as the number of congregants at Beth Israel exploded, I was asked by my mentor, Rabbi Daberson, to take a few things off of his plate. Little did we know that within a few years, there would be over 24 B'nai Mitzvah in a single year. When I think of Rob, as I often do, sometimes when I am mulling over a situation, the acronym WWRD or WWRS come to mind. My lifetime goal has been that before acting or opening my mouth without thinking, I should say to myself, what would Rob do? What would Rob say? It was often after I ruminated over what had occurred that I would kick myself for not honoring my mantra, WWRD. Thank you, Rob, for being my mentor for my years as ritual assistant. And then a new sheriff came to town. What a blessing it has become. I must tell you often when Rob Nadav introduces a new minhag for Beth Israel, I say to myself, oi, am I uncomfortable with that? And then when he does it a second time, I think, why have we not been doing that all along? Rav Nadav has brought a beautiful and meaningful new tradition to Beth Israel. I remember the first time Rav Nadav introduced the Minhag Ne'ilah of approaching the open Aron Kodesh and offer a short thought, a blessing, maybe a confession. I thought, who's going to do that? The line started and it grew. And I was standing on my side of the sanctuary where I've been comfortable sitting for so many years, and I saw our congregants deeply moved by the opportunity. There were tears in so many eyes. It was obvious that Rav Nadav had discovered an untouched nerve. Rav Nadav brought the tradition of the B'nai Mitzvah, passing the Torah from generation to generation. Once again, I said to myself, "Oy, that feels uncomfortable," until I saw so many families appreciative of this new custom. It occurred to me and I thought, isn't that why I'm here? Isn't it my goal to ensure our traditions are passed from generation to generation? Throughout my life, ensuring traditions are passed from generation to generation has been my goal. It was my objective while teaching, my goal while working with Abonim, and my target for my 24+ years working on the Bima. It was true making entire families feel comfortable on the Bima, but my focus has always been to try to plant a seed. My hope was the seed planted by our wonderful tutors some of whom are with us today, would be nurtured into bloom, perhaps not immediately. My hope was the young adults who were at that moment comfortable would continue to feel comfortable wherever their Jewish life might take them, on whichever bima they may make aliyah. In addition to my rabbinic mentors, we all need to thank the staff at Beth Israel for all they've done. Beth, Sam, Michelle, Heather, and of course, Rav Nadav have managed to successfully get us through the past 2 years with skills they could only dream of having 2 years ago. And now, Meg. I wish you all the success possible in your quest for continued involvement in our traditions as ritual assistant. The committee, Linda, Bunky, Matt, Jeff, Pam, Michelle, and Carol Feinerman, Zichrona Livracha, need the recognition they deserve. And I want to offer my sincerest appreciation for the congregants and families with whom I have had the honor to work, and all the Minyan captains who knew that we would be davening via Zoom. Finally, I want to thank all who have contributed and donated to the new Ron Sussman Educational Fund. The purpose is to ensure the tradition of Bima Lador Vador from generation to generation continue at Beth Israel. But I would like the name of the fund to reflect the woman I call Merekezet Mishpacha. She is a continual source of religious inspiration for me and for so many other congregants. Please rename the fund the Ron and Lonnie Educational Fund. Thank you and you and you for this honor. Hoshia et amecha, uvarech et nachlatecha ureim, v'nasem ad haolam. Shabbat shalom.
Since everyone's already standing, remain standing. You can get your tutoring booklet that has all of your notes in it and bring it back up to the Bima to lead Musaf, page 155. Remain standing.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Yolamad Yivarach Lirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayei chor v'yom echod, uv'chayei l'chol beit Yisrael, ba'gala uv'zman kariv, b'meru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach, Leolam uleolmei omaya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesh shabarichu v'yehilah mikol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata Dami Yoma Vimeru. Amen.
Page 166B.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzchak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel v'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol v'Zocher Chasdei Avot Umevi Goel Livnei v'Nehem Lema'an Shemo B'Yahava Melech Ozer Foked U'Moshia U'Makein Baruch Atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ufoked Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechaye Metim Atarav Lehoshia Mechalkel Chayim Bechesed Mechaye Metim Berachamim Rabim Somet Novrim Berafei Kolim Tzir Asurim V'Shenei Afar V'Chamocha Ba'al Gevurot Melech Meinit U'Mechaye U'Matzmiach Yeshua B'Neman Atah Le'Hachayot Meitim Baruch Atah Adonai Mechaye HaMeitim Na'aritzecha v'na'akdishcha Kesotziach Sarvei Kodeshim Shimachad B'Kodesh Ka'katu Al Yad Nevi'echa V'kara Ze'el Zeh Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai Tzva'ot Meloch Kol Haaretz Kevodo Kvodo Malei Olam Asher Ataf Shalem Zeh Lazeh Ayem Mekom Kvodo Le'umatam Baruch Yomeru Min komo hu yifen berachamim v'yachon am hamyachadim shemo erev avoker v'chol yom tamid pamayim b'ava shema omrim Shema Yisrael Adonai Hu Eloheinu Hu Avinu Hu Malkeinu Hu Moshienu Yashmienu Berachamav Sheni Le'enei Kochai Liot Lachem Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem Adirenu Adonai Adonenu Ma'adir Shimcha B'chol Haaretz V'haya Adonai Melech al Kol Haaretz Bayom Hahu Yi Adonai Echad U'Shmo Echad U'V'divrei Kodshecha Katuv Le'mor L'dor v'dor Hallelujah L'dor v'dor Nagi Kod Lecha U'Lenetzach Netzachim Kedushatcha Nakdish B'Shivchacha Eloheinu Mipinu Lo Yemush Le'olam Va'ed Ki El Melech Gadol V'Kadosh Ata Baruch Ata Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh.
We continue silently 170 and forward with insertions for Shabbat and matzahs.
Yom HaShabbat
You have finished davening. You're welcome to be seated. For those still davening, please continue as the rest of us continue on 181.
Yit Gadav Yit Gadashem Rabba Bialamat Divarach Rataviam Lech Makute Bechai Chon Uviomechon Uvechai Dechol Beit Israel Bagalat Vizman Kari Ve'imaru Amen Eshmei Vit Barak, Vishtabak, Vit Par, Vit Ramam, Vit Naseh, Vit Adar, Vit Alev, Vit Halal, Shmei Kudesh, Shabarichu, Elah, Min Kol Birchata V'Shirata, Tush Bechata V'Nechamata, Dami Ron Bialama V'imaru. Vit Kabel, Sloton, Uvoton, Decho Yisrael, Kadam, Avuhon Divishmaya V'imaru. Yehi Shlomo Rabba Min Shemaya V'chaim Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imaru. Oh, say Shalom B'Imromav V'yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael V'imaru.
182.
The name of Shem. Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu. Mi Eloheinu, mi Kadonenu, mi Kemalkeinu, Kemalkeinu, mi Moshienu. No del Eloheinu, no del Adonenu, no del Malkeinu, the Malkeinu, no del Moshienu. Baruch, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu. Atahu Siriti Ruach, Avotenu Lefanecha, Avotenu Lefanecha, Et Ketoret Hasamim, Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rabbi Hanina, Amar Rabbi Elazar, Abba Rabbi Elazar, Shalom Rav Le'ohavei Toratecha, Ve'ein lanu micho. Yehi shalom, shalom v'chelech shalva be'armenotayich leman achai v'rei adabrana shalom ba leman beit Adonai Eloheinu v'akshal tov lach Adonai ozlamo yitein Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol Gidulai yotzer v'reshit Shelo asanu kegoye haratzot V'lo samanu kemishpachot adama Shelo sam chelkeinu kahem V'goraleinu kechol hamonam V'anachnu korim umishtachavim umodim Lifnei melech malchei hamlachim Hakadosh Baruch Hu Shehu notesh shamayim v'yosei haaretz Umoshav yikaro v'shamayim mima'al Ushchinatu zo begavhei meromim Eloheinu Emet Malkeinu Epetulato Kakatu Betorato Viadata Hayom Behashivota Elevabecha Ki Adonai Hu Elohim Shamayim Bima V'al haaretz mitachat Elohim. Okay, kavel. Kakatu b'toratech Adonai yimloch li'olam va'ed v'ne'emar Hay Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz Vayom hahu Yeh Adonai echad Ushemo
We may be seated. Beth Israel congregation remembers, among others on this Shabbat, the Yortzites of Sidney Altman, Samuel Avon, Susan Chapman, Paula Platt-Dessau, Stephen Eliakim, Jay Feinerman and Aaron Feinerman, William Friedman, Charles Gelman, Pearl Gerber, Melvin Gluckman, Robert Goldblatt, Robert Abraham Green, Abraham Ralph Isaacs, Selma Diane Kaplan Price, Mildred Kleiman, Pauline Kutzen, Aubrey Lansky, Oscar Myron, Robert Mortis, Anshel Moshkovich, Marty Perlman, Thomas Perlman, Donald Perlmutter, Bessie Rappaport, Robin Rontal, Alfred Rosenberg, Peggy Rosenzweig, Herschel Routman, James David Sandoz, Leonard Samuel Snyder, Arthur Spector, Aaron Stern, Beverly Weinman, Adelaide Wellen, Stuart Wertman, and Ida Zimmerman. As we continue to say Kaddish for Elaine Stoller, Natalie Scher, Susan Feingold Schultz, Judith Cashton, Lorraine Sherman, Michael Adams, Leona Leon, Phyllis Werbel, Fanchen Lessing, Carol Feinerman, David Fowman, Bruce Thal, Carol Emster, Gary Joseph Ullman, Paul Ernest Phillips, Barbara Marco, Leslie Garber Matthews, Alan Fisherman, and now newly this week, Raisa Levinskaya. For those reciting the Mourner's Kaddish, we're on 184. Please recite with me. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divra kirute v'yamlich machute, v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uvizman kari v'imru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevarach le'olam ulamei hayam. Yibarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitromam v'yinaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudishah. Le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran bi'ama v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the memories continue to bring blessings to this world. Some very brief announcements. Rabbi Doberson's Talmud study will be this Monday, April 25th at 4 p.m. And it's the last class. So let's finish strong. Okay. Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, I apologize, I didn't give more warning to the community. It snuck up on me. I mean, we're still in Pesach, but Yom HaShoah snuck up on me a little bit, and I haven't sent out a lot of emails about it, but I did send out one, if you haven't checked, just before Chag. It's this coming Wednesday evening, April 27th at 7 p.m. We are continuing to do, for the time being, we're continuing to do evening minyan by Zoom. And there are reasons for that. I'll explain at a different time. And partly it's to make sure we make a minyan in a time that's still, it's still a mixture of the light and the dark. But when we have ceremonies like this, they're in person. I really want to encourage you. Minyan will be in person, of course. Wednesday, April 27th is Wednesday. We'll start with minyan at 6:45 and go right into Yom HaShoah. Just not too much, but some memories, some poetry, some extra prayers, some lighting of candles. So I encourage you that that's something that's important for every Jew to witness. And that's this coming Wednesday, which means that the following Tuesday night is our Yom Hazikaron ceremony. And again, I've been behind about communicating that and making calls. So I'm going to start making calls to people as soon as I get the chance to invite people to do readings and to come. But it would be a great kindness to me if you would email me and say, Rabbi, I would like to have a reading for Yom Hazikaron. I've done it before. I'll spare you the call. I'll be there. What do you want me to do? And similarly for Yom HaShoah. So I invite that this Wednesday night, Yom HaShoah, next Tuesday, the following Tuesday evening, also the same system, 6:45 minyan, followed by the Yom HaZikaron Tekes ceremony. In person, of course, we'll stream it as well, but I really want to encourage you to come in person. And with that, page 187, let's finish strong with Adon Olam.
Adon Olam Asher Malach Terem Kol Yetzir V'Ein Nasa V'Ketzoko Azai Melech Shemon Yikra Azai Melech Shemon Yikra V'Acharei Yikra Beli Reishi, Beli Tachli, Below Ahoz, Ve'Hamitzvah, Below Ahoz, Ve'Hamitzvah, Ve'Ueli, Ve'Chai Go'ali, Ve'Tzor, Kefli, Ve'Etzvah, Ve'Hu Nisi, Menat Kosi, Yom Ekra, Menat Kosi, Yom Ekra, Ve'yado Afki Ruchi, Ve'ei Isha, Ve'ayikra.
Let's finish strong.
Ve'ei Ruchi, Ve'ei
Judah.